Good morning, all.
Good morning, Rob.
How's everybody doing?
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And before we start, does everybody know how to get access to like the handout on the email that goes out? Thumbs up if you do. Yes. All right. Very good. So for those of you where I'm sitting here with my co-host today, Pat Stracuzzi, and we're down in our new office in Stuart, Florida. So if you have anybody looking to move in Stuart, St. Lucie, Jupiter, we're all here.
Thank you.
So exactly what to say in real estate. I think our industry does a lot of training on, what we need to accomplish. We do a lot of training on teaching us how to interpret data. We do a lot of training to teach you how to be compliant with paperwork and contracts. Do we not? Big show of hands if you feel we do all that. Now, when was the last time that an industry event had training on how to talk to your clients, how to answer questions? Is that kind of a missing subject, right? Nobody really, Julie Kirkwood, they give you the information, they teach you the contract, but they never tell you how to explain it, do they? I mean, they tell you how to read it to the customer, but they don't tell you how to explain the process. And today is all about how to explain the process. I'm going to say a couple of things, which I think sometimes we wish our job was easier. Does anybody ever wish the job was easier? Well, if you do, don't, because if it was easier, you wouldn't make as much money as you do. And I saw some of you that raised your hands. You did very well last year. You did extremely well. And if it was easy, there would be a lot more competition, and you would get paid a lot less. Does that make sense? So don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Wish you knew how to explain it better. Okay. Competition breeds excellence. Okay. Competition is what makes us have to strive to find new ways to do things, new technologies, new ways to make things more efficient. Now, I don't know if Julie's able to speak, but Julie, did you just have contract changes in Missouri? And you tend to have them a lot, right?
We did. With the last couple of years, we've had a lot of changes, multiple times.
And I'm here in Florida. I think there's a new change going into effect March 1st, and there was a new change a few months back. So there's always change, and change is kind of at times can be a little bit frustrating, but it also screams opportunity, because what do you think your competition's doing? You think they're embracing the change and getting ahead of it, or you think they're trying to just stay out of real estate purgatory and not get fined?
They're trying to deny the change that was happening. And Sandy and our brokerage we were very proactive. We were on the front lines, first ones training, first ones putting our input in and getting that to our agents to come out ahead.
So a lot of people, Julie, are trying to not get into trouble with the changes, but they're not trying to use it as a strategic advantage because they understand the process. They don't just know how to stay compliant, but they know how to explain the process to establish a differentiator between themselves and the competition. Okay. So change screams opportunity, competition makes us better, and conflicts and obstacles lead to innovation and growth. Okay, conflicts and obstacles and objections lead to innovation and growth. I'm here with somebody that probably is one of the best at, understanding what to say and when. And I think you've made a intentional effort, and you've chosen mentors that have given you guidance on how to feel comfortable, what to say and when to say it, and even how you carry yourself when you say it. Because I know when I saw you coaching some of your team members, you'll say you even need to softly touch somebody to get their attention, correct?
Well, I would say when you come into the office, if you're a leader, walk in, and how your personality is going to affect them their whole day. So sometimes you walk in and you can high five them or fist bump them. I don't do it intentionally. It just becomes who you are. My brother-in-law is 77. He just had open heart surgery, triple open heart surgery. And when I went over to the back of his desk, I didn't wasn't doing this in a manipulative way. I just was massaging his shoulders and his neck. You just greet everybody that you're here in a way when you walk in. It makes a big difference as a leader.
I guess people.
But you can also touch somebody from here to here, according to body language. If you lift your arm, Rob, studies have said that when you tell somebody something, and this is not to be a manipulator, it just helps you become a better communicator, that this was the best of the people in the world with body language and tests from college, that when the college kids brought the books back, the librarian would say, I need to have it back by Wednesday, and touch them like that when saying it, and the books got returned. So you basically say, I strongly recommend they get on first base. You don't want to wait. And when you're authentic about it,
it's not manipulative.
No, it's being a better communicator. And I think that these scripts and dialogues that the best people in the world, I lucked out that I went to my first Remax seminar 34 years ago. And Rob's question was, about business and do you wish it was this? But I remember that first full year selling mostly single wide, double wide trailers. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but doing 52 with no assistance and you're burnt out and you're like ready to quit. And then I went to the first Remax seminar and met Howard Brinton 3 times in the course, and the best of the best teach you. And that's what you have here. They're all pearls. But I was really lucky to have the absolute best people teach me. And I think that this, again, is not manipulative. It's being a better communication, advanced communication. I love that movie with Glengarry Glenn Ross, with Alec Baldwin in that scene. I mean, it's really harsh, but, it really is true. People don't want to spend a long time to sell their house or to buy a house. They want to get it done. And for the most amount of money, shortest amount of time, where you're looking over someone who's a buyer. But they don't want to play games, and they want to meet with you at 11:15, and they want to be done by 4 o'clock, and they've negotiated a contract, and they don't want to be your friend for 30 days buying a house. So it just helps you be a better person with these things that we're sharing.
So this is not part of my conversation, but there's something that comes to mind. When you're at the initial phase, the initial relationship of establishing the relationship with a seller or a buyer, right? When you're having those early conversations, is that conversation more about trying to attract them to work with you, or is it more about trying to guide them to do the right thing? And I want a little bit of input here. So you're on a listing appointment and you're meeting the person in their home, you're doing the walkthrough of their house. Now, tell me, is that about trying to land the listing, or is it trying to set the stage to have a successful transaction? And I think those are 2 different things. This is where you can unmute yourself and share with your peers here, because I want a candid answer on what you feel.
I think you're building the relationship. You're setting a stage.
Okay. A lot of our peers, Lynn would say, I have to get the transaction and then I can work on I have to get the commitment, then I can work on the process, as opposed to perhaps having a higher level of communication to set the stage of how this is going to go. And then the transaction comes together naturally, right? Because sometimes, has anybody ever heard a buyer or a seller say something that was a little bit unrealistic and emotional?
Sure.
Right. And if you just go there and say, that's crazy, your house isn't worth that, are you going to get the listing? Probably not, right?
No.
And is it easier to get the listing by misleading them? And do people in our industry do that? The answer is probably a resounding yes, right? So the communication is the only thing that bridges the gap between securing a listing, a piece of paper that's signed, and setting the stage for the process that's going to get you the best outcome, right? And I get to think Napoleon Hill had said, always deliver more than deliver more than you're paid for, right? Because it will always pay dividends. So, you're paid to sell the house, but if you focus on the experience and exceeding their expectations, what's the most valuable thing to us in this business? Isn't it a referral, a past client giving a referral? Isn't that like the holy grail?
The key to success is personal relationships, which is Dickie Fox from Jerry Maguire. And it's your relationship with them. And you actually can, I believe you go on a listing, you're not supposed to leave unless it's signed up in not in a forceful way, but in a way that that no one else is going to do a better job for them than you. And you're not being arrogant or ego of edging God out, but they feel comfortable with you. You feel comfortable with them. And they end up signing with you and selecting you, I think is the word. It isn't should get rid of the word listing and call it, I was just selected by someone, and that you earned it and you deserve it. And you are going to serve them with all your heart. You go to someone's house, they don't want you to come back 2-3 times, be their best friend, have lunch. They want you to meet with them. The word listing, listing, is also listening, asking open-ended questions, finding out everything that they want, when, where, how, showing your USP, which is your unique selling proposition, whether it's within yourself or your team, and measuring the house when they show you the house at the same time, so you're saving time, sitting down when you're done, walking away, shaking their hand, giving them a hug, and then hand it off to your team and do the entire system of getting the house sold for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of challenges. And those really are the 3 things that people want. If they're a seller, they want the most amount of money. They want to do it in a reasonable amount of time, and they want the least amount of challenges. It's not complicated. And I just, I think that we're our own, whatever you put in your mind, that's the way it's going to be. And you have to balance your own life out. If you don't do it this way and put yourself first in your daytime, or take it from me. Oh my gosh, I just had 3 open heart surgeries. 2 this year, 2 other ones. This one overcame this week that I don't need this 3rd surgery. Psychologically, you can have a bunch of doctors tell you you're sick, and you become sick.
It's also communication in the medical field too, right?
Yeah. I went to the best. My sister found me the best in the world to go to Houston, and these 2 doctors both said, don't have the operation, this 3rd one. So I mean, you guys got to be that same way, that know when they come to see you, I think you need to let them know how you work, and listen. And it isn't another 2-step listing. It shouldn't be, because otherwise you can't live your life. And this life right now, we're all just visiting here for a little while.
So I want to have everybody maybe do a little change, and I'm going to encourage everybody to print out just the first page here. Okay, you can read the rest, but the first page is something that I want you to internalize. Okay, and I'm going to read it to you. I might even read it to you twice. But don't write. Don't be taking phone calls. Stop checking your text messages, because this stuff here, if you let it sink in, it's gonna help you. It's gonna give you strength in communication. So words, syntax, and tonality matter in communication, especially with the complexity of a real estate transaction. Okay, real estate is not getting any easier. The regulations, the complexity, the rules, the class action lawsuits, the MLS rules, we're in a more complex business. Okay, it's not getting any easier. I know many of you raised your hands. You said you wish it was a little easier, but don't. Words, syntax, tonality matter in communication, especially in a real estate transaction. If you rush through it, they're not listening, right? Part of communicating is asking good questions and listening, being a good listener to the answer. Many of us in this industry, we ask questions and we're going on to the next question, not even listening to what the person says. We've all been guilty of that, different degrees. Saying the right words in the correct order at the optimal time can be the difference between a successful outcome and a failed exercise. Does that make sense? Saying the right words in the correct order at the optimal time can be the difference between a positive, successful outcome and a failed effort, a failed transaction, a failed experience. Okay. I'm going to preface this. It's not on this handout because I think this is self-evident. But who's heard by way of hands? People don't care what you know until they know what?
How much you care.
Until they know that you care, right? Has anybody heard that before? Right? That's a universal truth. Like, people don't care like what you're saying until they know that you really care about the outcome.
That's a great affirmation, by the way, Robin. To have that, one of those SDs or big things on the wall that you look at that within your company or your office. It's kind of like what you look at, you become. And I think for not only ourselves to review that and look at it, but our team members to see that as an affirmation within the office, like a poster.
Okay, so I'm gonna do this is a little bit of brainwashing in a positive way for everybody here. So it's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. Excuse me. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Okay, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because many of us can say the same thing at an appointment and get a different outcome. Would you all agree with that? Like, if you could find, like, if you're both landed in the exact same experience, Julie and Ron can say the exact same words, and they'll probably get a different outcome from the exact same person. Does anybody not believe that? Mm-hmm. So we all understand and believe that. Okay, it's not what you do, it's how you make them feel. How about that? Does that resonate with anybody? It's not what you do, it's how you make them feel that matters. Meet them where they are with warmth and integrity, okay, authenticity. When you don't have confidence, authenticity, and you're talking, like, if you finish your sentence with an upstroke, it sounds like even you don't believe yourself, right? So you need to be prepared, not just with what you're going to say, but you need to be prepared how you're going to say it and have the confidence to deliver it. Okay. An extreme example would be, I'm not following any of these top comedians, but if there's a top comedian, they might make $1 million for doing a show. And if they gave myself, Patrick, Beth or Bill that script, the audience would throw fruit at us because we don't know how to deliver it, right? It's all in the way that we say it and how we make people feel that makes the difference. Don't upstroke in your language, pace, make sure you have eye contact, chin up, good posture. And one of the biggest mistakes I think we do is overcompensating or over talking. Don't overcompensate, don't over talk. Physiology, tone, tenor, and pacing. All these things matter. Okay, physiology, tone, tenor, and pacing. Okay, so if you're saying it too quickly, okay, you come across as a little bit too salesy. If you say it a little bit too slow, you come across a little bit less confident. So you have to have all of that correct and be authentic. Oftentimes, let your first response be a breath and an appropriate pause instead of feeling like you need to put an answer immediately. Sometimes people throw an answer out even if it doesn't make sense. Okay, just to fill the air. You don't need to respond to every single objection to win. You don't need to respond to every objection to win. congruency and authenticity matters. Does anybody want to tell me, what does that mean to you? Congruency and authenticity matters. Anybody?
Well, you have to be consistent. And by that I mean that's the congruency part. People sense if you say the words out of your mouth don't match your body language and your eye contact and your tone of voice. That's what that means.
Yeah, I mean, you, I guess you have to
It's
have some,
subtle. I mean, it's subtle. You don't always realize you're doing it, but people sense it.
you have to have control of the content material that you're dealing with, and be consistent with it in the delivery and be authentic, right?
Right.
Another one, and this is a crisis in our industry and probably in the sales industry. The person who speaks the most almost always knows the least. Stop overcompensating.
Mm-hmm.
The person who speaks the most almost always knows the least. Stop overcompensating. Vicky, I see you shaking your head. You can relate to that one, right? You're in control when you're asking good questions. We talked about that, right? The person in control is the person asking the questions. But more importantly, you're in control when you're asking good questions and actively listening to the answer. Okay, we didn't talk about that part, but a lot of times we're asking questions, then we're going on to the next question before we really embrace what's being said, right? And when you're not really fully engaged and you have to say, can you repeat that? Do you think that builds trust? Or do you think that just makes them feel like they're not important? Makes them feel not important. Okay. So those are some things that honestly I would like you to internalize, because hearing it, reading it, seeing it doesn't really doesn't move the needle to the magnitude it needs to until you really embrace and internalize it. I'm gonna talk a little bit about some objection handling skills. Let me ask while I'm doing that, what are some of the biggest objections that you fear when you're talking to a client, a buyer's first appointment, talking to an unreasonable, unrealistic seller? And let's face it, when I say an unrealistic seller, can I just say seller and it's almost known to be the same thing, right? Is there any difference between a seller and an unrealistic seller? It's unrealistic almost seems to be unnecessary to put that adjective there, right? So, anybody have any questions, or like, what's an objection that you find hard to overcome?
We're seeing other realtors before we make a decision.
Okay. And Ron, like, to me, I love that one. I'm like, when I'm shopping, I'd like to know what all my options are. I really respect you for that, and then I'll continue moving forward. And who's had clients on a regular basis that say, "Hey, Ron, I'm interviewing 3 people," and when you go on 3 of those appointments, you walk away with the listing all 3 times, and there's no second appointment. And if you say, all right, I hope if I answered all your questions after you meet with the other 2, call me back. Who thinks that's a good strategy?
If you're going to walk from that listing when they say that, you're not going to get that listing. You have to be very confident and sincere and honest with them and be upfront with them and explain to them the differences between realtors. What I tell them is, look, everything I showed you here, do you think I'm competent enough to get your property sold? If they say yes, so then what's the problem? Or I can just say, let's get it. Let's put it together today, and I'll call those other two realtors that you're going to see, and I'll tell them I listed the property. If they have any buyers, let them bring them by. Sometimes, most of the times, that works.
So when somebody says, my neighbor sold with an agent with a lower commission, who loves that question and who's intimidated and who's just like whatever?
They're willing to negotiate their commission. Not going to be a good negotiator on your price.
A great script to memorize is happiness and a cheap price is always lost in the bitterness of poor quality. And the bottom line is you get what you pay for. And I just went to Houston, Texas. That thank God I went there to the two number one surgeons specializing in what the challenge I was going through. And they said, no, don't do the operation. Where 6 other people that wanted to do the operation, I found out they never did it before. They never even did it. They wanted me to be a guinea pig. So, you get what you pay for. Interestingly, it was really the same price. These doctors, it cost money for the airfare and the hotel and food for 2 days. But gosh, you get what you pay for. You might as well go for the best. If you have a program called Core Logic that can help create graphs to show them, you tell them using network authenticity is you have to believe truly that you serve with all your heart. You don't just say it, you do it. And if you don't do it yourself, you have a team behind you.
So who likes happiness at a cheap price is lost in the bitterness of
always
quality?
Lost in the bitterness of poor quality.
Who likes that? Now, who's going to use that?
If I can remember it.
It's
happiness in a cheap price is always lost in the bitterness of poor quality. And the bottom line, another story, which is true. When I was a little kid, they used to give you $1, my parents, my mother, to go 2 blocks to this bakery. And you had 2 loaves of French kind of Italian bread for $1. If you didn't sell it that day, they'd make breadcrumbs out of it. And it's, a lot of this, no matter what we do, Howard Brinton used to say, even if you're located right next to a nuclear power plant, but it's priced right, it will sell. I think giving people a range of, possible here, you could push the envelope, cash buyers, etc. But, there are a lot of cash buyers right now. And in Florida, they're coming from all where you are, and it looks like a bargain. And some of them are just saying, I'll take it. And, pricing is really an art. As a matter of fact, even an appraisal, the definition of an appraisal is an art on a multiple choice question that I memorized that.
Isn't it called an opinion of value? It's not a fact.
No, it's actually the correct answer because I memorized that test, that when you see it, you just go like that. An appraisal is an art. You can get 3 or 4 different appraisals. They're all going to be different. The way that it is an opinion.
Yeah.
It's an opinion.
So I want to, before I go to the next one, who would more like consider themselves to be a real estate advisor, and who would be a real estate salesperson?
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're a consultant or advisor as opposed to a salesperson, all the consultants raise their hand now.
But
who's a real estate salesperson? Look at look at the minority of hands. We need to embrace the sales portion of our identity.
Right.
Because if we try to run away from it, okay, then we lose part of our identity. We're salespeople. If
There's
you don't
nothing
want
wrong with being a salesperson.
Exactly. There's zero wrong with being a salesperson, and a lot of that. I'm a real estate advisor. I'm a consultant. Those people don't make calls. Okay, those people aren't hungry. They're not building client lists. Okay, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Patrick, but a couple of the people that have been very influential in my life, they talk about you have a moral obligation to help as many people as you can.
Yes.
Okay, it's not a financial incentive. If you're good at what you do, if God gave you the skills to help people and you develop those skills, you have a moral obligation to as many people as you can. Okay, that's a different frame from, I want to sell 3 houses and buy a fancy car. Okay, you're putting others first. You have an obligation to help people because of the skill that you have.
And I also feel like I have an obligation because the best people in the world taught me that I take what they taught me and I share it with you, and then you share it with other people. And it's basically paying it forward that the majority of these things came from something I may have read or an expert. And, working with a buyer, I think the most important thing is when you have a face-to-face meeting with them is to say, let me tell you how I work. Let them know.
I don't think there's anybody at the leaderboard who has high market share sustainably over time. That's just a natural salesperson. They always have to develop themselves, invest in improving what nobody else can take, which is your skill, your learning ability.
But also your communication, advanced communication, being authentic. And this is we're not actors, but every single day you can act happy, you can act sad, you can act depressed. We are our own person of our own life. It's your life today. Or how you're going to take today and be the very best version of yourself. And other people teach you this. You tell those buyers, let me tell you how I work. Most people buy from me the first time I go out. But I've already asked you the 4 top things that you want in a home. Then you gave me the 4 bonus things. You gave us the budget. This is basically right now all that's available. And if I don't ask you after showing you this one house, and it's perfect for you, do you want it? And we should get on first base right now. You're going to be mad at me when you lose that house because we're in a Cabbage Patch Doll Beanie Baby market. There's only so much to buy. And somehow through the grace of God, miracle, you meet with them, you wonder, is this a joke? At 10:15 by 4 o'clock, you've started the negotiations, and the next 2 days, boy, you just sold the house. And it doesn't matter if it's a $600,000 house or $5 million house. It's really handled the same way. And the 2 sales that I worked this week with buyers, you got to go back to old fashioned. Old fashioned. What does that mean? You got to work. That means one guy from Jersey, he's an attorney. I met him with his friend. I looked at the property. I FaceTimed him. I recommended. He made the offer. I got face to face with the other realtor and the buyer. His name was Richard. Oh my gosh, look, we're from the same hometown almost. And we closed the sale.
That was a $5 million sale?
Yeah, that one was 610. The other one was about 4.8.
Okay, so I want to
both people bought that day.
Yeah.
I mean, there was negotiation skills in the next 48 hours, but each time I got face to face with the other realtor who had the listing. So as well as the buyer, the first one, but that was such PMA. We talked about eyes, present mind awareness. You are totally with those people. You don't have your phone in there looking at your FaceTime, Instagram, social media. If you get binged or dinged, you are there with them. And the same thing with the other people. I know is it me? No, ego means edging God out, but somehow we found that right property, the very first one out.
So I can give you definitive proof how communication matters over what I'll call bricks and sticks, which is the characteristics of a house. Now, Patrick, do you go on any of your do you go as the listing agent to any of the showings for your listings?
What I do as I have, I think Rob said something about when things change, you got to change with it, or a marketplace, so that I can give the very best service. I have right now 1, 2, 3 agents that work with me more full time. They've been with me 25 years, very dedicated, that when I go on a listing appointment, probably 85% of the time, I will share it with one of my team members who works with buyers and sellers. And the reason why is we do like opening up the door. And we have clients that are in wheelchairs, another one has Alzheimer's.
So you're saying
we have stuff
you're saying if Keller Williams is showing your listing, that you go there and open the door for it.
That way we can listen, like this is what it says. And you might hear something like, oh gosh, look at this kitchen or whatever. But another script in dialogue is you can never pay too much for Boardwalk or Park Place in the game of Monopoly. You can't change the location. You land on it, you buy it. You can change the kitchen or bathroom. So while you're there, you're getting paid a lot of money, by the way. This isn't that tough a job unless you've mixed cement or done tables. This is a lot you're getting paid. So you go there, you listen, you isolate, you overcome, you close. You can even start negotiations with the other realtor and the buyer to isolate that objection and say, if you want, right now, I've got sellers that are desperate. They've moved, they're out, they're not desperate. They want you to bring them offers. So you might even say, why don't you just, get on first base? What I do is I hand the contract to the other realtor. I have Lisa type up the contract for the property. Everything but the buyer's names and the prices. I have a little booklet for them, the MLS sheet, et cetera, information. I said, oh, by the way, I put a purchase agreement in here for you. Get rid of the word contract. It sounds nicer. I put a purchase agreement, and here's a pen. Okay. Okay. All you got to do is strongly recommend them to buy the house. It's all done for you.
Right.
Do it the old-fashioned way. Get it back to me, and we'll make the sale. And watch how your sales will work. You're working together with the other realtor.
Who would feel uncomfortable going on a?
I exaggerated
No,
but I have done that.
Right, but who would feel uncomfortable, or like it's an invasion of the other agent's opportunity to show, opening the door for that showing appointment? Does anybody do that?
You're also,
we have a lot of listings.
House up for the people and
so Robert, Lynn, you do that at times, or
I do,
often?
yeah. I have a property right up the street from mine. It's basically my floor plan, just a little bit smaller. So I know a lot about the house and I can overcome objections right there with the buyer, with the seller, sell them on the community, just like what you were saying. You can change out the kitchen, you can change the flooring, but you cannot change the community and the value in the community. So I just find, I do a lot of open houses. I love doing open houses, and I do show. Sometimes it's difficult trying to manage all the showings with working and having other appointments, but I find it's very valuable. But I like your idea with writing up a contract. I'm going to do that at my open house on Sunday. I'm going to see how it works.
For all that's worked. And this is an accident that somehow I invented this. I've taught entire companies with this, and I'll give Rob the piece of paper. And now we've had them printed. They're on it's kind of like this. I was going to tell you, a little guy named Joseph Bank from the clothing place. He passed away, the cousin. But he said this is one of the most powerful things is you make a list of things to do, and then you cross it off. Great thing to give to customers, clients. But the biggest thing, what you just said, these open houses. So I invented this thing. I'll give Rob a piece of paper that he'll put it on there. And when they come into the open house, you ask them to fill this out. It has their name, their number, are they working with another realtor, etc., how they heard about the open house. And then you give them Columbo. Columbo was a detective that right before he left, he always went, oh, by the way, and then he cracked the case. So you go, oh, by the way, we're having, just for coming in, my mother loved this. My parents are children of the Depression, born in the 1930s. They loved to win things. The Reader's Digest used to have the stickers, and she put her name on everything. Just for coming in, one person's going to be picked. It's the Carson's Tavern. It's kind of like Cheers in Boston. It's amazing. So put down your name, your number, your information, and what I want you to do, someone's going to be, as a matter of fact, I want you both, if there's a husband or wife or two people, both of you, and then guess the price, what you think it's going to sell for. Because I got $1,000 closest to the selling price. All I want you to do is look at the house, give it your education of what you think it's going to sell for. So I'm teaching my 31-year-old daughter.
For New Jersey, this is not allowed. I think one of two states that you can't do it.
I don't know about this. I don't see what the problem is. You can get rid of the $1,000 or whatever, but I don't know. Maybe you're not allowed to give away a gift.
You're not allowed to have sweepstakes in New Jersey. New Jersey is very peculiar. So
I want to tell you, I start negotiations. So once they put the price on what they think it's going to sell, I get face to face, whether it's 2 doors down, like this nice person sharing said. I go 2 doors over where it was Dad's house. This is what everybody guessed. Would you take any of these? I then call back the buyers. I said, well, we're $15,000 apart. Do you want to accept it or do you want to counter? I show my daughter how to do an open house, and in like 2 hours, we have it sold.
All right.
I don't know what's legal or not in Jersey.
I mean, the concept's great to get their opinions. I want to just I want to go through a few things really quickly, and then we'll kind of go back into a little bit more of a discussion. Skills that will pay us forever, that will help us in our career, is embracing the sales role. The ability to clearly convey thoughts and emotions when meeting with clients. Okay. Break down the process, which is simply simplifying complex tasks or complex matters into simple, actionable steps. Helps people make a decision. Listening skills, a lot of these things are things that when you hear Patrick talking about the way he engages, there are undertones of all of these principles. And some of the things he wrote are actually on my list, and they were done independently. Be adaptive, right? In other words, have you ever gone someplace and I'll give you an example. I went on a listing appointment probably 15 years ago with a brand new agent in Union. Okay, we did the whole analysis and we based it on when it sold 4 years earlier. We went there and they put an addition on with an extra bedroom and a sunroom. And all my analysis was for a 3-bedroom. We now had a 4-bedroom with an extra room. Okay, probably, I learned a really valuable lesson to ask better questions before I go out there, but I certainly wasn't going to not continue with my process and make it adapt the presentation or the work product that I had. So we need to be able to pivot when necessary. We need to read, understand, retain market data. Okay, and this is another interesting one. If you've prepared extremely well for a client appointment, whether it's a listing or a buyer, and you have all the information, you prepared all these great charts in a listing book, if they're ready to sign, just put that away. You don't need it. You don't have to then, okay, now we're going to go through it. You might lose them, right? You might bring out questions that weren't there. Okay. I believe that the art of successfully preparing gives you the confidence where you don't often need the material. Does that make sense? Right? Because, don't be like, shucks, I did all this work for nothing. No, you didn't. That gave you the confidence so that if they asked any question, you can go to page 11 and pull it out and say, here's what this is.
One of the pearls that I had by accident years ago when I was younger was I met Tim Baker from Naperville, Illinois. And I asked him, how does he do all this paperwork? I'm up till 2, 3 in the morning. And he goes, I have somebody that does it for me. I thought, well, that can't be done. Well, my brother-in-law is 77. He's really into doing numbers and making things look beautiful and the right font and a rubber band around it and a clip, puts it together. And it just makes our lives so much better when you find people that do what you can do, but it takes you 2, 3 hours to do that, where your time is worth so much more. And then you grab the folder after you've discussed it with Jim and you go, like Rob said, you pull over on the side of the road, you go through it, kind of throw out the stuff you don't need in the back seat, and then you secure the property. But like Rob said, a lot of times you can ask people, is it price or is it time? Sometimes people just want the property sold in 48 hours. And it's that, you can show it to them, but time is very, very important, especially when they're paying $10,000 a month for their mother's nursing home, that this house is vacant. And I think we're our own victims where I got to tell you, I'd watch that over and over again, that Glengarry Glen Ross, because it's true. We have to stop calling buyers liars and complaining about people. And instead of looking internally at yourself before you ask a question, are you asking in advanced communication just out of curiosity and then ask the question?
Okay,
And it's how you deliver and how you communicate.
So it was a fun scene for somebody not in sales to have somebody. No, Patrick,
there's a lot of truth to it.
No, but I'm gonna.
He's hard. I'm soft.
No,
but that guy was tough.
Hold on. I remember seeing the leads are weak.
The leads are weak.
And who knows? Not you, Pat. Who knows what the response to that was in Glengarry Glen Ross? The leads are weak. That was a Jack Lemmon quote. Anybody know what the comeback there was?
Alec Baldwin said it's a Jack Lemmon. That's his by the water cooler.
Come on, somebody knows that.
He said the leads are weak. You're weak. That's what he said.
The leads are the leads. You're weak, right? The people are the people. You get what you get. Okay, nothing is random. Like you're not good enough to attract the layups, and you're not good enough to attract only the crazy people.
Everybody's crazy though. And that's normal is sitting on a laundry machine. Everyone is kind of crazy, but there are people you shouldn't work with. Especially women and stuff. There's a lot of violent people.
Continue. You're in control of the process, right? If you give up control, then you deserve what you get. And I don't mean to be harsh, but we're the professional. We're running the play that wins. Okay, it's our decision to run the play. And you might say, well, I didn't know that they didn't respond the way they're supposed to. Everybody always responds in a way that we can address. And it's very rarely do we find anything new in terms of objections, right? If you've been in this business for 5 years, you're not seeing anything new. You're just hitting the same objections over and over and over again. You have to remain optimistic. Your mindset directly influences your performance. You need to recognize emotion and embrace data and ask better questions. Confidence is contagious. I don't know who said this, but if you don't fully believe in yourself, it's unanimous, right? How is the client going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself? And then collaboration accelerates growth. Okay. I don't care who you are, there's mentorship and finding somebody that that resonates with you will get you there 3x, 5x, 10x faster. And you'll be able to serve your clients at a higher level. Okay. And sales, embracing the term sales is not a manip. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts?
Rob, if I could share a thought. So this is something I heard at a seminar many years ago, and it kind of gets me back to just the way I handle things. We had a room full of realtors, a couple hundred realtors, and the speaker got up there, and the first thing out of his mouth, and excuse my language, we're all adults here, he said, "Nobody gives a shit about you." And there was a collective gasp in the room of all these big producing mega ego realtors, like, oh my gosh, how could he say something like that? But I sat there and I said, this guy is 100% right, because nobody cares about the 6, 8, 10, 15 deals that we're processing and the problems with this home inspection and this appraisal. They're focused on one thing, and that's their transaction, their sale, their house, and their problems. So when things are going good and I'm getting really full of myself, I always remember that, because it grounds me and it reminds me that we got to worry about the people more so than ourselves or myself.
And when you do that, and you put the customer ahead of telling them about all your problems, you usually find the solution appears, in my opinion.
Rob, a few of the things I've come up with over the years were, number one, I'd rather turn you down now than let you down later. And what do we have to be to strike a deal? Where do we have to be to strike a deal? Let's get right to the point, and then we know where we're at.
Yep. And here's where some people might really tune out here, but sometimes if I'm thinking something and I don't need to say it, but people can feel it, and I don't know how I can explain that, but if I'm like, Bobby Golden, if you price it like that, it's gonna be catastrophic for you. I'm thinking it, you can almost read my thoughts without me having to be punitively telling you you're crazy trying to go at that high price. And I know it sounds totally crazy, and it doesn't make any sense from a very logical person, but the way that you think, the way that you carry yourself is more important than the words that come out of your mouth, right?
You have to have confidence in what you're putting out there to the client. And if you're usually meeting with two people and you can discern your reasoning for pricing, one of them usually will agree with you and say, hey, look at what she's showing you here. This is, these are the facts. You can ask what you want, but it doesn't mean that it's going to sell for that. Today's market is so different. The past 3 years is so different than the markets we've had before. So depending on the market you're in, that's the conversation you have to have.
Yep. So
Rob,
Patrick,
I like to, yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd like to replace the word sales with share. So instead of always thinking about a selling presentation or selling a consultation, I just replace the word with share. And it's a little easier because a lot of people get triggered by the word salesperson or sales consultant. So I just say, I'm going to share some information with you so you can have more knowledge on what's going on in the market and things like that.
So Alina, I agree that maybe the outward approach, but the way we internalize our identity needs to be salespeople because we sell, right? The whole process is selling, and a lot of us want to we want to use words to disguise what we do. We're a consultant, we're an advisor, we're this, we're that. If you don't want to be outwardly, hey, I'm the best salesperson in the local market, that's fine, but have your own identity be that of a salesperson because that's what we are. Don't mean to be offensive with that, but I just want to kind of shift the identity that we have for ourselves. Now, Patrick, we're down to like 6 minutes. What would 2 or 3 things be that you could tell this group of peers here?
I would say when you're doing this, do not look at this is manipulative. This is just tested over and over with communication, advanced communication. You're just basically sharpening your own sword that other people did it. So when you are asking questions to someone, the best thing you can do sometimes is to repeat what they say. It's just like a script and dialogue for when you're calling an expired that says, hi, this is Patrick Stracuzzi, Remax Select Properties, and I was calling because I see your property came off the market. I was wondering, did you sell it or is it still available? And when they go, it's still available, you go, so it's still available? And then they say yes. And that's when you go forward. And that is basically repeating what someone says when asking questions, just to be clear. But the other thing is, we learn all these things. It's kind of like, we could call it telling a joke, or you can go to see a comedy like Rob said, and it's the same thing after you've seen it 3 times with 3 different performances. And Michael Jordan would always take the shot. He made more shots than anybody, but he missed more baskets than anybody. And it's how many times that you want to get in front of customers, clients, buyers, and sellers, but with stories. And this is a script and dialogue on a listing. And you just say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, in this market, in most markets more now than ever, we do have to sell your home 3 times. We have to sell it to the other realtors, the people that we work with. We have to sell it to the buyer. And we do have to sell it to the appraiser if it's not a cash transaction. So, your choices are, you can start with the end in mind and get an appraisal now, which they're all different. And this is the area zone of what the computers say, or what your USP is, which is your unique selling proposition. And before I came out, I asked you, what are the 3 top things that you love about your home? I wrote that down. I utilized that for your USP in marketing. And then the 3 bonus things about your home that make it very different. So when you ask those questions, I think it helps you do your best to get the correct price. But, a lot of times I brought somebody with me, and sometimes someone's the expert, or they become very argumentative that you're doing someone a favor, another agent. You're bringing them with them, and you're going to give them half of a lot of money because you're kind. And I was using a talking pad for this lady named Brenda. Brenda's home didn't sell 2 other times. I wrote down 3 prices, and the one party who was with me goes, "You'll never get that price." I'm like, "Well, there's nothing else to buy. Everything on the island is gone. They're the one and only." I said, "Brenda, you pick the price." She circled the one, put it on the market. First realtor calls me on a coming soon. And I said, they go, "What do you think I can get for it?" And Barbara Brown's been working with me for 35 years. I'm like, "Barbara, the only price that I know they'll take is full price. Why don't you strongly recommend them to get on First Base? We're a transaction broker, and we'll go from there." He says, "I'll try." The next realtor called me. I said the same thing. The offer came in from New York, New York. It was full price. They never came down for the home inspection, but after the home inspection, everything was done. They wanted to see the house after the inspections and all the contingencies are met. And Brenda says, "I don't want to let him in my house. I'm scared." Like, the deal is over. He didn't care. He knew where it was. He's going to gut it with his wife anyway. And we are not that kind of experts that sometimes you write down the 3 prices, you hand them the pen, and you ask them to pick one. It's like a game, because we're not that good that someone's going to come here and it's 10 degrees below zero and they just got $900,000 for their 100-year-old home that doesn't have air conditioning. And oh my gosh, I could have this on a golf course on a lake with a pool for only 610 and a gated community. I'll take it, And even telling that to buyers before you take them, if you're authentic, "I'm going to show this to you," and you're going to go, "I'll take it." They walk in and they go, "I'll take it." But you do have to be authentic about it. It has to fit their 3 things that they have to have in a home.
So
all these things are what other people taught me. I'm just a guy that used to mix cement 40 years ago and put mud on the wall and do tile work. I'm not anybody except for I hung out with really smart people, the best in the world. And Howard would fly me to Canada to shouted the #1 Canadian agent in the world for 3 days for $5,000. You are what your friends are. Create your own masterminds or someone outside the area that can be your go-to person, like Eric Pruitt, 35 years in Palm Beach. Part of the reason why I selected to be in this group, my best friend Eric, I have a question. I pick up the phone. I call Eric. He'll call me. Sometimes it's personal. It's about a kid or something, You just have to have a good lifeline.
It's a relationship. So
Yes.
Here's the question we got 1 minute left. The question I'm going to leave everybody with is, you're at a listing opportunity, you're on an appointment, and the seller, you have this choice that you can make. The seller's like, "Yeah, I hear everything you're saying, Patrick, but I still want to list it incorrectly." Okay. That you're going to cost that homeowner a lot of money by letting it languish on the market. Okay. Might even kind of tarnish your reputation a little bit. It'll probably be a rough road to get to the finish line, but you probably ultimately get paid. Who takes that listing and who walks away? That I don't want anybody to answer, but I want you to think about that. Patrick, you can answer, but that's a theoretical for everybody.
I recommend you take the listing, but in the listing, you put in there that in the event it doesn't sell after 10 days, it would then be repositioned. But do not take the listing. So many times when I was young, I don't mean to say that, but I'm 60, maybe 62. That's kind of getting older. But when I was in my 20s, I was that guy that had to get that price. And I'd say, "Oh, well, Adam got paid. He's this waterfront specialist. I told him it wouldn't sell for that, but Adam took the listing. He got 2 price reductions, and Adam made a lot of money." And we're not that good. I would take it and sign them up and then have them do price reduction.
So
everybody's different.
Yeah, no, I got a tremendous amount of respect. Like, I probably would take a couple more bites at the apple, and I would probably have a bias to say, look, if the strategy you choose, I believe, is going to cost you money. Would you be offended if I respectfully withdrew? And I would say most people would probably say, what?
But if the dock in the back could put the Queen Mary in its 9-foot draft and you can't get that anywhere else, somebody might buy that house because they have a $3 million boat. So everything is different the way you lay it out.
I mean, when we're talking about, let's just say that let's say $200,000 condo, $400,000 townhouse. There's 9 others on the market. The only thing you're going to do is sell the other 7 properties. If it was that clear, I definitely would not be somebody taking that, and I would look you in the eye and say, Patrick, if working with me cost you money, would you mind if I just withdrew from consideration? And that would be how I would behave. And we're kind of talking about a little bit different strategies because real estate almost always is unique. But I have my opinions, and sometimes when that vibe is there, the seller will respond without it even being said. So I wish everybody a happy President's Weekend and happy Valentine's Day. And can't wait to see you all next week. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.